The media turns the COVID panic up even higher. The Great Barton Declaration on why lockdowns should end is signed by a whole bunch of scientists. Trump says even more is going to be declassified around Russia collusion, and a VP debate tonight that we'll bring you up to speed on. Welcome, friends, family, countrymen, Americans, people from all over the world, actually. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show. Great to have you here with me. Thank you so much. It is an honor and a privilege to get a chance to speak with you all. Let's jump right into it. There was a bit of a recuperation process yesterday for the media. They had to dust themselves off a bit. They were still in a state of shock after President Trump had recovered so quickly from the COVID-19 circumstance in the hospital, at least. He's not better. He's not 100% fine. But we know that there are a lot of people right now who are trying to figure out how they keep the narrative going of be terrified of COVID, even though President Trump, a 74-year-old man who has some additional aggravating factors perhaps for COVID, has been able to do quite well. And in a sense, he's now a big test case for a lot of people as to how much better the treatment has gotten. Everything that he has received is available to the general public. But no, it's still so important for everyone to be terrified all the time. Don't look at the numbers. Don't look at what's actually happened here. No, that would be way too rational. You are supposed to be afraid. Be very afraid is what the media is telling you. That is what they believe. And they want to make sure you believe it, too. You have no other means in this process. There's no other way for you to go. And that's why you've got people like Cuomo out there saying, no, you got to be terrified all the time. Play 3.
From a public service point of view, 210,000 people died. More people die in this country than countries around the world that were doing much worse than we were. From a public service point of view, don't be afraid of COVID. No, be afraid of COVID. It can kill you. Don't be cavalier. This is just more denial. This is where it started. And you know, the president, God bless him, he tells you where he's going. We know that when COVID started, he knew how bad it was going to be, and he just lied about it.
You know, if it wasn't for that guy, the governor of New York, the U.S. overall per 100,000 death rate for COVID would be better than most, if not all, large European countries. The outlier in the United States of all of the different places that have had major waves of COVID is, in fact, New York and New Jersey. By far the worst outcome, by far the highest death toll per capita. Nowhere else really even comes close. Even still, with the waves that have hit over the summer and the Sun Belt and California's spikes in cases, New York was by far the worst. And he is lecturing the rest of the country, really just lecturing Trump supporters about how outrageous what the president said is. Remember, he says, don't let it dominate your life. Trump says, don't let it dominate your life. Don't be afraid of it all the time. And they're saying, no, let it dominate your life. That is what we have set up for you. We insist that you live in constant fear of this thing, that you not allow yourself a moment's reprieve from being in this state of panic. It's completely outrageous, but that is very important to them right now. It's very important to them because they understand a country that feels optimistic, a country that thinks things are actually going pretty well. You know, the economy is recovering. It's coming back. Biden will make it much worse, make it much slower. The whole thing will go in the other direction. I think we all know that because they never learn the lesson. They never learn any of the lessons of history about their policies. Otherwise, they couldn't support them today. What, do you think Biden's going to make the economy strong? This whole Build Back Better thing? What does Joe Biden know about making things better for the American people who actually have to go to work and run a business? Do you think the Democrats care about all the service workers who are out of a job right now? No, if anything, they want to continue as soon as they're in charge so they get the political credit for it. They want to continue with what's a de facto universal basic income, a UBI. Send people checks every month. That's fine. You don't want to work, we'll send you a check every month. This was an idea that was talked about in the Democrat primary, most notably by Andrew Yang. He's actually one of the least annoying of the Democrat candidates, so that's not saying all that much. And now they see a pathway to it. Increasing the welfare state, increasing dependency on the government, forcing people to be less autonomous, less self-sufficient. They like this. That's all to the good as far as Democrats are concerned. You know, you'll have the elites, the people that write the checks so that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer keep getting elected. They're fine. They get to work remotely. Nothing changes for them. But for people that are lower down on the economic ladder, people that are just trying to make a living, hourly workers, guess what? Too bad if they have to shut down again for another 6 months under Biden administration. But don't worry, they'll send them a check. Notice how that's going to change the perception that all of us had about being dependent on government. It's not a choice. When the government says you can't open your bar, you can't operate your restaurant, it's not up to you. They're going to shut you down. In fact, we just saw last night in Brooklyn, de Blasio sending in the NYPD, the mayor of New York City, sent in the NYPD to break up a demonstration of Orthodox Jews who were like, we're done with all this lockdown stuff. So just harassing that community, they're outside, doesn't matter. Not allowed to do it. If there were a Black Lives Matter protest, the city would roll out the red carpet. Then it's all fine. Then everyone can think that this is wonderful. And, of course, no COVID risk. Black Lives Matter, you know, who needs social distancing when you have social justice? Wokeness is a special protection from viruses. You may have just figured this out. So this is where we are. This is the situation in which we find ourselves. It's completely mind-blowing that the Democrats are going to just cling to the most panic narrative possible until the election, irrespective of what it does to the country and what it means for the American people. They simply do not care. And they also don't mind however much they have to lie to you, they will. I mean, here's Biden, who's going to have his Veep, would-be Veep, Kamala Harris tonight, spewing all kinds of nonsense on that stage. And the media is going to go overtime trying to support her. Right? Whatever they have to do, they'll do. They're in this to win this, folks. I mean the media, not the Democrat Party. They're making sure that their preferred candidate's going to get through this. But Biden will say things that no intelligent, serious person can believe this at this point. Here he is telling you that wearing a mask is not political. Play 5.
It's estimated that nearly another 210,000 Americans could lose their lives by the end of the year. Enough. No more. Let's just set partisanship aside. Let's end the politics and follow the science. Wearing a mask is not a political statement. It's a scientific recommendation. Social distancing isn't a political statement. It's a scientific recommendation. Testing, tracing, the development, and ultimate approval and distribution of a vaccine isn't a political statement. It is a science-based decision. We can't undo what has been done. We can't go back, but we can do so much better. We can do better starting today. We can have a national strategy that puts politics aside and saves lives. We can have a national strategy that will make it possible for our schools and businesses to open safely. We can have a national strategy that reflects the true values of this nation.
I mean, this guy is full of so much bull. It's amazing that he's actually even in contention to be the president. Never mind ahead in a lot of the national polls you're seeing, which I don't particularly believe, but that's where it is right now. He's the one that wants the lockdowns. Remember that. He's the one that wants the lockdowns, but he says we're going to find a way to open up. No, the Democrats are the ones saying lock it down. They can't have it both ways. They're the ones that have been pushing for schools to be locked down going into the election, which was a completely unjustified decision from a purely scientific standpoint. Outrageous. But they don't care. They don't care about all the suffering from all these people. They're just using the death toll of COVID for political purposes right now. Nobody wanted any of those people to die. It's been horrible. But we've been doing all the things that Biden says he's going to do. He speaks about this like it's some revolutionary new plan they've got. Oh, we're going to social distance and mask. We've been doing this crap for now, what, 7, 8 months? How much longer are we supposed to do this? It hasn't worked. If you look at the data, it shows that there are places where after mask mandates went into effect as a matter of law, things got even worse. So what is he even saying? Oh, we could be better. Trump didn't do a good enough job. He didn't protect you from this virus. Take a look at what's going on in Argentina right now, which has one of the highest COVID positivity rates in the entire world for all the tests that it's running. It's not testing as much as other places are, but got over 20,000 deaths. Argentina has a much smaller population than a lot of these countries we're talking about. 20,000 deaths from COVID-19. And those, I'm assuming, are actually directly from COVID as opposed to the with COVID deaths that absolutely have been calculated in this country. So we have an inflated COVID death figure. Look, I'm not saying I have no idea, by the way, how inflated it is. We do know that there are at least thousands, if not tens of thousands of cases of people based on the way that they're tabulating these things that should not be considered COVID deaths. But look, if it's 50,000 people dying from COVID, 100,000 people dying from COVID, it's horrible. And that's clearly the case. We've lost a lot of people to this virus. There's no question. But ultimately, it's about the country having an adult conversation with itself. All of us talking to each other and saying, look, we're doing what we can, but this virus is spreading and has been spreading. And all the people who have been saying, just do this, just do that, it'll stop it, it'll fix it, we're wrong. They've just been wrong. It hasn't worked. You think if Joe Biden's in charge all of a sudden, there's just going to be more mask shaming. More people who are outside going for a bike ride who are told, where's your mask? More people who are walking alone on a nature hike. This actually happened to a friend of mine, and somebody passed from 20 feet away out in the woods. Where's your mask? Oh, it's not political? Well, then our people either have politicized this or they're too stupid to have a conversation about what's actually a safety measure versus what is just a waste of everybody's time. And it's annoying. It's harassment. I know, look, I'm not giving up on this one because I think a lot of people on our side were just going along. Oh, let's show some good faith. I don't want to have this fight right now. Come on. I don't want to be wearing a mask. It's annoying, but I'll go along with it. And look, I've been beaten down by it too. You want to be the one person in New York City? I mean, it's basically like walking around with a MAGA hat on now. If you don't wear a mask outside, that's how people view it in this city. And I'm sure that's true in other places as well, which of course is insane. But whether they wanted it to become one or not, and I think they did, it is a political statement. So why lie about it? Why is Joe Biden and all these other Democrat politicians, why do they have masks on their avatars on Twitter? Why are their social media accounts all changed out so their official photo has a mask on? Oh, because that's inspiring people to mask up. I don't give a crap what these politicians do with their own, medical decisions and safety. That's up to them. I'm not going to say, oh, well, if Joe Biden's wearing a mask, I better wear one too. But it's all symbolic, friends. It's symbolic of control. They're trying to see how much they can make you do and what they can get away with. And unfortunately, they've gotten away with far too much. Unfortunately, we're at a point now where we're just negotiating over how deep the tyranny will run instead of whether we're actually going to get our freedom back. I'm hoping this will start to change. I'll tell you in just a little bit about thousands of scientists, doctors, researchers who are saying these lockdowns are horrible. It is not scientific. It needs to stop. The Great Barrington Declaration. Why aren't you hearing about this in other places? Why isn't this the number one story on every conservative site in the country? I can't tell you. No, let's have a bunch of people do the same 5 things to look for in tonight's vice presidential debate. This is what everyone does. Okay. We got to cover our bases, and there's a vice presidential debate tonight. But this declaration out of Great Barrington, Massachusetts is, honestly, it should be the end of all of this stuff that we're seeing with the lockdowns. It should be all over, done, tomorrow, finished. And these are scientists. That's what they're saying. But nope, not going to happen. People don't want to admit that they're wrong, and they don't want to give up control. And they're pretending that this is about keeping you safe. Here's the truth. They can't keep you safe, and they don't care. And that's why when Trump says, don't let this dominate your life, don't be afraid all the time, it enrages them so much. Because that's what they want. And they've gotten used to it. And now just Trump saying that takes away some of the power that they've accumulated. And so they react with rage at this, particularly the journos. Who I don't know who the worst people are in America, journalists or mask shamers, although there's obviously a lot of crossover there. What does losing your home have to do with the COVID-19 pandemic? Well, it's pretty straightforward because the FBI will tell you that cybercrime's up about 75% from the beginning of the pandemic, and it turns out that home title theft is actually a cybercrime. Here's how it works. The bad guys find your information online, then they use a quitclaim deed to kick you off, put themselves on, and then they take out loans against your home's value. You often won't find out about this until you get stuck with the bills or perhaps even the foreclosure notice. The usual identity theft services do not protect you. You have to protect your home with Home Title Lock. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code RADIO. 30 free days of protection. You can check out the service. You can also look to see online if you're already a victim of home title theft and don't know it yet. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. Take action today to protect your most valuable asset.
And I hate saying this stuff. It's tough to believe, and it didn't need to be this way. Something that we talk about all the time. But yes, 410,000 was the projection for my HME, while at the same time the projection around, but they say 100,000 of those lives could be saved if we had 95% mask wearing. So it's hard to hear, but it sort of tracks with everything else we've been hearing.
We're just back into the same loop we were before. The models say this, and if you do what I say, the models say that, so you have to do it. Remember, they're not recommending, they're mandating. The Biden campaign, they want to make you do these things. They're going to fine you. They're going to lock you up if you don't do these things. Dr. Fauci said, who I really think is the worst. This guy is like a Democrat operative who has gotten away with more manipulation of public perception than anybody in recent memory. It's horrible. What has he ever said that you're like, wow, that's really helpful. That's really good. Yeah. Does he calm you down? Does he make you feel like the country's going to get through this? No, he shows up and goes, well, I think maybe another 400,000, maybe 2 million, maybe at the max, maybe 5 million. I don't know. We're all going to die. This is our top public health official that we're supposed to be listening to all the time? What? A disaster. An absolute disaster. This guy is the Comey of the health world. He says the models tell us, quote, if we do not do the kind of things we're talking about in the cold of the fall and the winter, we could have 300 to 400,000 deaths. That would just be so tragic. So it's on us, you see. Do everything they say, or else hundreds of thousands of people are going to die. Let me tell you something right now. No matter what happens here, there are going to be people who die, and they're going to say the reason they died is because we didn't listen enough. We weren't well behaved enough. We weren't good enough children when St. Fauci was trying to give us his blessing. Is this the country you want? I don't want to live in this country where that's happening, where people are all of a sudden bowing and scraping and begging for the approval of bureaucrats who have earned nothing other than the right to be in a government position for a long time. I'm not impressed by that. I used to work for the federal government, full of clowns and morons. Not everybody, but a lot of them. 300,000 or 400,000 people. It's not even clear if he means 300 to 400,000 more will die, or we'll get to another 100 to 200,000 on top of this. Why hasn't New York already seen the huge spike in cases? It's in a few communities. Why? Does he have an answer for this? No, he has no idea. You'll notice they don't even try to tell you what's going to happen next week or next month, or it's always a 3-month projection as to what's going to happen. Listen to us or else. Well, there's another point of view on this, folks, one from a whole lot of doctors that I want to tell you about right now. The Great Barrington Declaration. This should be for conservative outlets, for news outlets across the country. This should be a top news story, and they're not telling you about this. Wall Street Journal had a piece on it today. It's starting to get out there, but why isn't everyone pointing to this? We're always told, listen to the scientists. That's what they say. All the scientists believe, and then they fill in something. all the doctors tell you, and then they say their preferred, mask mania, lockdown talking points. Well, this is a declaration that you need to hear. And it is, as of this show, been signed by 3,298 medical and public health scientists and over 5,000 MDs, doctors. Not like Jill Biden doctors. I mean real doctors. She's a PhD in bureaucracy. Real doctors. So that's and these are people that when you hear their credentials, I'll get to, you'll say, are they crazy? Did Trump brainwash them? Did they not understand something about wear a mask? This is what they write. The Great Barrington Declaration. As infectious disease epidemiologists and public health scientists, we have grave concerns about the damaging physical and mental health impacts of the prevailing COVID-19 policies and recommend an approach we call focused protection. Coming from both the left and the right and around the world, we have devoted our careers to protecting people. Current lockdown policies are producing devastating effects on short and long-term public health. The results, to name a few, include lower childhood vaccination rates, worsening cardiovascular disease outcomes, fewer cancer screenings, and deteriorating mental health, leading to greater excess mortality in years to come, with the working class and younger members of society carrying the heaviest burden. Keeping students out of school is a grave injustice. Keeping these measures in place until a vaccine is available will cause irreparable damage, with the underprivileged disproportionately harmed. Fortunately, our understanding of the virus is growing. We know that vulnerability to death from COVID-19 is more than 1,000-fold higher in the old and infirm than the young. Indeed, for children, COVID-19 is less dangerous than many other harms, including influenza. As immunity builds in the population, the risk of infection to all, including the vulnerable, falls. We know that all populations will eventually reach herd immunity, the point at which the rate of new infections is stable, and that this can be assisted but is not dependent upon a vaccine. Our goal should therefore be to minimize mortality and social harm until we reach herd immunity. The most compassionate approach that balances the risks and benefits of reaching herd immunity is to allow those who are at minimal risk of death to live their lives normally, to build up immunity to the virus through natural infection while better protecting those who are at highest risk. We call this focused protection. Adopting measures to protect the vulnerable should be the central aim of public health responses to COVID-19. By way of example, nursing homes should use staff with acquired immunity and perform frequent PCR testing of other staff and all visitors. Staff rotation should be minimized. Retired people living at home should have groceries and other essentials delivered to their home. When possible, they should meet family members outside rather than inside. A comprehensive and detailed list of measures, including approaches to multi-generational households, can be implemented and is well within the scope and capability of public health professionals. Those who are not vulnerable should immediately be allowed to resume life as normal. Simple hygiene measures such as hand washing and staying home when sick should be practiced by everyone to reduce the herd immunity threshold. Schools and universities should be open for in-person teaching. Extracurricular activities such as sports should be resumed. Young, low-risk adults should work normally rather than from home. Restaurants and other businesses should open, and arts, music, sports, and other cultural activities should resume. People who are more at risk may participate if they wish, while society as a whole enjoys the protection conferred upon the vulnerable by those who have built up herd immunity. Now, you might be saying, okay, hold on a second. Why haven't I heard about this? Why haven't more people been told about this? This was just signed on October 4th. It's October 7th, but, it must be because these are, you know what you always hear when people oppose the lockdown stuff? These are quacks. That's what they'll say. These are quacks, they'll tell you. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what's going on in society, and they're just full of it, right? Okay. Well, here are some of the people that are a part of this. Here are some of the people that have signed their names to it already. Dr. Martin Koldorf, professor of medicine at Harvard University, a biostatistician, an epidemiologist with expertise in detecting and monitoring of infectious disease outbreaks and vaccine safety evaluations. Dr. Sunetra Gupta, professor at Oxford University, an epidemiologist with expertise in immunology. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, professor at Stanford University Medical School, a physician, epidemiologist, health economist. Dr. Sucharit Bhakti, professor of medical microbiology, University of Mainz, Germany. Dr. Rajiv Bhatia, physician with the Veterans Administration, epidemiology. Professor Stephen Bremner, professor of medical statistics, Brighton and Sussex Medical School, UK. It goes on and on and on. I mean, more. You've got Massachusetts General Hospital on here. Department of Clinical Microbiology, Tel Aviv University, Israel. Professor of mathematics, focusing on population and evolutionary theory and infectious disease epidemiology in Glasgow. It just goes on and on and on. Top institutions in the world have some of their top people that are saying, stop this lockdown crap now. It's not working. It's damaging. It's wrong. Focused protection. Protect those at risk. Everyone else, go back to normal life. Acceptable risk for them. Some of us have been saying to do this for 6 months just because you're rational, have good judgment and wisdom, understand what the heck's actually going on. Does anyone really believe that we're going to have a 95% compliance rate for social distancing and mask wearing? That's insane. And think of the costs of this, too. It's outrageous. Focused protection is the answer. The Trump administration should be all over this. I don't know what to say other than we've got to tell people, we've got to spread the word. This is what the scientists are saying. Here's AOC trying to give everybody a bit of her medical advice when it comes, or her medical assessment, I should say, when it comes to the president of the United States. Play 16.
The president is not in a good condition. He just was diagnosed with COVID. His oxygen levels were in perilously low areas over the weekend that were extremely concerning. And then we're supposed to believe that everything is absolutely fine right now when we were receiving conflicting medical reports from both the White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and some of the physicians that we were hearing at Walter Reed. Now, I don't think that we should be making any large political decisions when the president is in such a perilous medical state. He is still receiving interventions and treatments, and we're in the middle of talking about and making dramatic decisions.
Yeah, so he's just like not really even the president right now. He's just like not even the president. Like it's just like whatever, like 25th. Constitutional convention or something or whatever. Like, yeah, this is the leading light of the young Democrat left, folks. This is the best they've got. Look, I don't want to be mean, but she wants to do things that'll kind of ruin your life. So I think we have to be honest about this. And I wonder if they ever get tired of just being wrong all the time. But they don't. Ask yourself this. Do they ever get tired of saying things that in retrospect, and I mean retrospect like as of yesterday, are foolish? Right? That they figure out in a 24-hour period, oh, yeah, what I said about the president was nonsense. All weekend we were hearing, oh, his oxygen levels dropped. He's very ill. Everyone's very concerned. They ran with that. The panic narrative turned out not to be true. So now we get to a place where they're just coming up with crazy ideas about why he's not really able to make decisions. The guy's taking, dexamethasone, which is a steroid you inhale, and I think you inhale it, and remdesivir, which is an antiviral drug. It's kind of like Tamiflu, but you have to take it through intravenous. But Tamiflu is something you take to deal with the flu. You have to take in the early stages of it. So what exactly is she saying? Nothing. Garbage. Nonsense. You don't have to really worry about it. You don't have to think about it. But the point is, they'll undermine the president and his ability to be the president in any way they can. And even if tomorrow what they say today sounds stupid, as long as it has the intended effect for a little while, they're fine with it. As long as it's able to serve the purpose of one news cycle, great. Doesn't matter. And then there's Shifty Schiff, who is among the scummiest of all fellows in Congress, which is truly saying something. I mean, this guy is a liar, a shameless liar, almost in a category of his own. I mean, there are many in Congress, many Democrats who will just lie to your face and don't care. But Adam Schiff, when you add Russia collusion to all the other stuff that he's pulled off, remember when he was doing his whole prosecutor routine for Pelosi and that House impeachment? What a sham that whole thing was. He really, does have the cold, dead eyes of a bottom-dwelling shark. That's really what you get from Adam Schiff. And yet, voters in California like this guy. They think that he's just great. Here's what he says. He's also trying to make the case that the president, he's not of sound mind right now. Their candidate is Joe Biden, who goes, and it's nap time for him. Got to call a lid for the day. But they want to talk about Trump not being of sound mind. That's how Schiff rolls. Play 10.
On the best of days, the president's thinking isn't too sound. So if there's any impairment, it's a real problem. To me, this harkens back to the president proudly boasting that he's going to take responsibility for shutting down the government. Well, he's now proudly taking responsibility for denying the American people help in their time of crisis. Basically, today, Donald Trump told the country, if you're a small business person and you're going under, too bad for you. I'm not going to bother with it until after the election. If you've lost your job and you're on unemployment compensation, your benefits have run out, that's too bad. That doesn't affect me. I don't care. I'll deal with that later. This is so irresponsible when millions are suffering. And, of course, politically, it makes no sense for him to do either. So it does call into question his judgment, certainly, but whether he's being impaired by these drugs.
This is slimy, Shifty Schiff saying it must be the meds. He's making such crazy decisions. It must be the meds. What a scummy fellow the Shifty Schiff is. But that's what he's telling you. And there's a couple of layers here. One, there is no reason to believe that anything. I mean, the president is not on heavy doses of morphine. There's nothing to make anyone believe that he can't make decisions or isn't of sound mind right now. We've seen him. He's been showing up. He's been talking. He's much more lucid than Biden is, Mr. calling it a lid at 9:30 in the morning every day. I want that. I want the Biden campaign. Most people call it a vacation. When you wake up, do something for like 30 minutes, then you're like, I'm done. But no, with Trump, it has to all be different. They will say anything. And then on this aid package, because this is getting a lot of attention, last 24 hours, the president said he would not sign what Pelosi and her crew of little socialists wanted, $2.4 trillion. $2.4 trillion of, that's not spending for like the whole budget for next year. That's just for now, just to keep things afloat. And Trump said, no, we'll give you $1.8 trillion. We will give money for people out of work and support to businesses that are COVID related. We're not going to just plug the holes of Democrat-run cities. This is where the real conflict is on this, the real friction. Democrat-run cities, we're not going to just bail them out with taxpayer dollars at the federal level. Sorry. Well, Pelosi and the rest, they're combining things that are not related. They love to do this. Pelosi keeps doing this. Now, I'm going to say Trump has not done a good enough job of explaining this to the American people. A lot of you are going to say, Buck, he's playing 5D chess or whatever. No. I'm not talking about to Trump voters, okay? He needs to be explaining this to people who aren't yet sold on Trump. That's what this is all about. It should be absolutely clear. It should be blaringly obvious that Nancy Pelosi, once again, she's done this now 3 different cycles of the Pelosi games. You know, Marie Antoinette style, let them eat cake while Pelosi's in her mansion, doesn't care about what's happening to any of these workers, but then goes on to MSNBC and CNN and pretends. Trump should be clobbering the Democrats on this. He's saying, look, they wanted to get money to people that are out of work and extend the unemployment benefits in August. We're in October. Democrats have been delaying because they insist on bringing these things, using these things together, and that's not the way this should be done, right? They're padding this. They're throwing in their little wish list on top of the actual money that would go to people, the stimulus payments that would go to people so that they can keep paying their bills while they're on lockdown. Trump has not made a good enough pitch on this one yet. And I'm sorry, we don't do the president any favors. And I know people from the White House listen to this show. We don't do the president any favors by encouraging a losing strategy on this one. He should have owned the news cycle on this for the last 24 hours, making sure everybody knows. He says he will sign right now $1.8 trillion given to people for their paycheck protection, given to people who are unable to open their businesses because of these lockdowns. Get that money to the economy. Get it to the American worker right away. It's just malpractice not to be winning this argument right now. And look, I know the president's sick. I know he's dealing with a lot. But, folks, we are now in the sprint phase of this contest. We are in the all-out, and we're about to add the ACB nomination next week onto this pile. So it's go big or go home time for Trump, for the Republicans. This is the whole thing. This is the big show right now. We've got less than 4 weeks to go here. Time to strap in, shields high.